All right. Well, hey, Maria and Amy, how are you?
Hi, great.
Hi, doing good.
Well, welcome to This is 50 podcast. I'm excited to have you, largely because I just love what our whole conversation that we're going to be talking about. But also, this is the first time I've actually recorded with two guests. So hopefully this will work for us. But yeah, so I wanted to get started just first by a small introduction. So Maria, you and I met through a mutual friend. He was having a dinner party. We were sitting there chatting. We were talking about what do you do? And you had brought up that you have this clinic that focuses on vaginal health for women. And I was fascinated because there's just so much that I want to talk to you about today. And then Amy, I was able to meet you at the actual clinic because I did do a treatment or two at the clinic, which we'll get into a little bit later. But Maria, I'm going to hand the floor over to you first. Give us a lowdown of who you are and sort of the clinic itself. And then we'll go over to Amy and you'll do the same.
Sure. Thanks for having us. All right. So I'm Maria. My last name's Wu. And I have uh, it's about 2021, I established a clinic called Mod Medical. And really, primarily, the reason for Mod was um, built because I see, being a woman, I see the inequalities in our healthcare system. We're from Alberta, and Alberta in particular, we were losing a lot of physicians um, over COVID just due to politics and the whole realm of things. So we were losing physicians. A lot of people were losing their family doctors, and because of that, I felt a sudden burden on my sisters and my daughter in particular, who was turning 18. And I thought, what is she going to do? Like, how is she going to find a family doctor? And if she finds a family doctor, how is she, like, can I be sure that she's going to be able to advocate for her own health with this person? Because I mean, with our age and experience, now we know we need to speak up, right? Like when we're not really getting the care we want, we say, "Are you sure? Can you look into that again?" But I can't necessarily say my 18-year-old would do that. And so there was two components to building Mod, and one was access uh, um, and equitable health. And the other component was emboldening women. I want it to be available and to educate us enough that we can actually speak up, because we know knowledge is power, and we know that through knowledge we can have the power to advocate for ourselves and our own bodies. So that's Mod in a quick snippet.
I love it. I love it. And we're going to go real deep into what Mod does. So, but first, Amy, give us a little bit of an introduction to you, your background.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me, Lynette. So my background, I've been teaching people about their pelvises for a little over 10 years. Um, Prenatal, postnatal was and still is the area I work in. I teach a lot of core and pelvic floor classes, labor prep, childbirth education, and I was fortunate to meet Maria, and everything about Maria and the clinic just was right away in alignment. And I knew I found a really unique and amazing spot. And so my job there is to do some educating, to work with Emsella, which we will talk about today, and yeah, meet some incredible women every day, and men too, but mostly women. Yeah, it's been really great so far.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I've had the experience of getting to know both of you really well. You're amazing. You're so warm and welcoming. So it made going to the clinic very, very comfortable. But let's get into what are the services that Mod actually provides?
Yeah, so Mod, mainly the main component is just basic vaginal health care. So it would be everything from PAPs to HPV vaccines, STI, birth control. We are a rapid birth control clinic. And so with the counseling and all of that that comes with it, menopause management, there's a lot of query about hormones and what bioidenticals are and what type of hormones we should be on. So a lot of counseling. We also offer pelvic floor physiotherapy and acupuncture specific for women's health, which would include just hormone balancing options if you don't want to be on medication. And then we've got Emsella, which is all about pelvic floor awareness and sexual function.
Awesome. So I entered the clinic under a little different circumstances. It was like we had already chatted. We almost did the intake at the the party. Actually, it was quite funny because then I got right into like all the things that I have done around like taking care of my vagina, I guess. And I just love the idea that you are a specialized clinic for vaginal health. It allows this sort of ability to create awareness and advocacy within ourselves. And it's like you mentioned in the introduction, I think that nowadays we've just got to start to take our health into our own hands and going that sort of typical public route, where it's like you go to your gynecologist and then, he or she provides you with these one or two solutions. I felt that your clinic really sort of took a more holistic view of everything that was happening. And you also educated as well. I mean, you had the model of the pelvic area and you were kind of showing me all these different things. And so I thought that was amazing. So I specifically went to the clinic to investigate Emsella. So why don't we start there and we can talk a little bit about what Emsella is and what does it actually do?
I will take this question.
Okay.
Yeah. So the technology of Emsella was designed for the treatment of incontinence. And there's two types of incontinence. You have stress incontinence, so running, jumping, exercise, any sort of stress on the bladder causing leakage, and urgency incontinence as well. So the frequent needs to go, the strong urge, trouble holding. That's what the technology was designed for. And when they were studying for, going through all the studies for the FDA Health Canada approval, they also noticed the participants having really great sexual function benefits as well. So that technology ended up in further studies down the road and was also FDA Health Canada approved in January of 2020 for the treatment of sexual function as well. So our patients come in and they sit on looks like a big chair. And in that chair is a very large magnet. And without getting too technical, this magnet basically causes these deep muscular contractions into the muscles of the pelvic floor. Blood flow is happening. We have this brain pelvis connection, biofeedback connection happening as well as they're sitting for treatment. They sit for 28 minutes and receive just under 12,000 Kegel type pelvic floor activations is what I like to call them. And often completing usually if they're treating incontinence, we have 6 sessions that they come back for. I do a little bit of educating, teaching them about their pelvis, healthy bladder habits and that sort of thing during their treatments as well. So it's pretty amazing. It's a really amazing technology.
And it is.
Yeah.
I can attest to that. Sitting on that chair was crazy. Actually, the first time I did it, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. But it's something that you do. You're clothed. You're sitting on the chair. It's not like anything is being like, inserted or anything like that.
Non-invasive. Yes.
Yeah. Non-invasive. So let's back up a little bit. What causes the incontinence and the different symptoms that you were saying that Emsella actually treats?
Yeah, there's a few different causes: hormonal changes, childbirth, menopause. As we age, the muscles inside the pelvis get weaker. You know, really, as we age, is what we see as we age is the muscles of the pelvis getting weaker. There's less blood flow. There's less sensation that we're experiencing. There's a few different reasons, but those are the common ones.
And notwithstanding having a boy that had the hugest head ever,
Yeah.
that would be
Yes,
my
definitely.
situation. Oh, I love him dearly. Okay, so now the idea is that, you know, we've all heard about Kegels, right? And one thing I realized when I was, you know, listening to you and while you were educating me, I realized, yeah, I've been doing all those Kegels wrong. And you had said that most people, I like
Most
9
of
out of
us.
10 women
Yes.
don't do a Kegel exercise correctly. And so that was interesting. It was sort of like, I don't know if it was Maria or Amy who told me, but it's sort of like you got to try to, you're trying to do this Kegel like you're sucking a blueberry through a straw. Was that you, Maria, that told me
That
that?
was, I think that was
That was
me. It
Amy.
That
was,
was
it was a milk,
amazing.
it was a milkshake through a straw because it's a slow kind of gradual contraction. But
Okay.
yes, most of us have been taught, we really haven't been taught. We've been taught to squeeze and clench and do them at red lights while we're sitting in
Yeah.
our car, but that's not, yeah, it's a slow, full range of motion process that we want, not a tense and a squeeze. Yeah.
Right. And so this MCELA, so I was able to get 4 treatments in before I actually had to leave Calgary. So, and we agreed that I definitely can feel a difference. It's amazing. Like in full transparency, and I had told Maria this, it was so interesting to talk to her because there was sort of this introduction of non-invasive treatments that, you know, when you Google search like vaginal rejuvenation or anything like that, most of the time it is surgical solutions. And I just really love the concept of, you know, trying to take more of a, I don't know if this is a naturopathic way, but a less invasive uh, procedure, I guess, and actually being able to feel the results. So for me, I definitely can feel the results, and that's been amazing. And it was definitely something that I was relieved because I had actually talked to a doctor based out of Dallas. She's a very highly recognized vaginal doctor. And you know, the my solution was to go to Dallas and have this surgery that would have been a huge recovery, like at least 15 days in bed, in a, you know, in a city, a country that, you know, I'm not from. And so it was really sort of scary. And it was just nice to hear that, you know, you guys are there. And I think that it's an amazing piece of technology. So what else does the clinic offer? I mean, maybe let's take a little step back and say, what is your intake? Like for a lot of women, we think, well, okay, I've gone to my gyno. He or she's recommended, you know, whether it's HRT or, well, there's nothing really you can do about that. And then we're sitting there left with with public healthcare, I guess, solutions. So take me through the process of what a woman should experience at a clinic like yours.
Yeah. So primarily, if a phys- or sorry, if a patient has a physician already, like our doctors wouldn't really offer anything beyond what Alberta Health or Canadian guidelines are. Uh, the the true difference is that we're spending the time, and these
Mm-hmm.
appointments are 30 minutes and they're not 5 minutes, because
Mm-hmm.
with time we can actually analyze and figure out what the actual symptoms are and the why behind it. Like physicians just don't have the time to spend with their patients in the room. And so
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes if we can figure out the reasoning, or maybe it's not a chronic UTI, maybe it's just vaginal dryness. Those are really common pieces that people come in and they're like, I've had UTI 4 times this year already, and I keep going on antibiotics. And okay, well, it's actually not UTI, right? It's your pelvic floor. It's dryness, and those pieces could be figured out if we had doctors spending the time with their patients.
Right.
So
So can
that
I just Can I just break down that a little bit? So,
Yeah.
UTI, urinary tract infection, what you're saying is that often that's misdiagnosed for other types of problems. Is that what you're saying?
It can be, is the thing. Like, I think UTI is so common that a lot of women just suddenly they're like, oh my goodness, I have UTI. Like they just, because the moment we've had it, we all know how horrible it is, right? So you are quick to in your mind diagnose what you have, and then now we have access to pharmacy too. We can easily go to a pharmacist and say, hey, I've got UTI, give me this, and then they just give it to you. But the challenge is when we see these regulars coming in, that's what we hear is like, okay, it's not UTI, it is something else. And it could well, because of the type of patients we have, a lot of them we see it's just simple dry vagina, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so what kind of solutions do you offer? Like what choices, I guess, do people have when it comes to that?
From a medical perspective, well, obviously we'd have things like estrogen gel, that's really dependent on what the needs are, and the physician would figure out with them. What we've got at Mod is we do have a retail area. And so if we're talking about vaginal dryness, we carry something called VRS. And it's a really great product. For it's non-hormonal. You would insert the product into your vagina just before you sleep. And what it does is it's basically a product that is derived from human stem cells, and it will teach your body to reactivate these the cells and the tissues, and then help reproduce your own natural lubrication again. And it's a kit. Basically, you want to use about 2 kits of them over 2 or 3 week time, and it'll help regenerate just by simply using a product. Yeah.
Wow.
And the great thing with that is that it is a non-hormone, right? So if you went to your physician, they would not have that solution for you because it's a private product. You do have to pay for it, but it wouldn't even be in their roster of items to try. Yeah. So these are that's what we do at Mod, is we try to source different solutions for different things that maybe people wouldn't receive with their Alberta Health or their doctor's visit.
Exactly. I remember years ago, I had a girlfriend, and, she was married and was just having a terrible time because she had this leaky bladder. And really, there was no options for her. And it was actually causing her a lot of discomfort and uncomfortableness in her relationship. And I remember her crying about it because it was just so disturbing for her. And so really the only thing at that time was to go to Shoppers Drug Mart and buy these, or like go to the local drugstore and buy these like pads, I guess. And so like, and I feel like sometimes, even the fact that I didn't even know about MCELA was interesting for me, because I keep thinking to myself, well, I can't be the only one with these symptoms, especially in my 50s now. And I know I'm not, actually. So was sort of a rhetorical remark. But the fact is that we're not talking about this stuff as women. And it's just so interesting. Like, why are we not talking about this stuff?
Yeah. It is very interesting. And it all goes back to like history, right? Like even just the word vagina in Latin translates to shame.
I
Like
know.
it's just so deep rooted. We don't talk about it because of those things. And because it is an intimate piece, like I think there's a lot of shame, and there's a lot of feeling of being failure when we have things like that, especially peeing our pants. Like nobody wants to pee our pants. Like that's like a childhood trauma.
Yeah.
So like something like that where you end up having pads, and it is very disappointing, because a lot of women with incontinence, they are going to their doctor, but the doctor just doesn't have a solution that is in public health. Like they have to end up spending some money, which is pads, right? It is buying pads, and there could be simple things like loss of estrogen that could resolve that, or we have this people call it a plug. It's not a plug. It's like it's like an at-home pessary. It's called Uresta, and you can put it in just before you run or exercise, and you can pull it out. So you don't have to get an actual pessary implanted in. So like,
And that's
all these little solutions that could be done. Yeah.
And so that's for the incontinence cases. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So
Yeah.
what would you say is the primary reason why women come to your clinic, and men too, but I just want to focus on women right now. I do want to get into the men part too. So for women, what's the biggest thing? Like 50%, 60% of the women that come in are seeking what type of treatment or solution, I guess?
Yeah. I think holistically, everyone is looking for more and for more education. I'd say across board, everyone is seeking just more information, more knowledge, solutions to what's happening, someone to listen. In terms of like what type of challenges, I would say a large component is pain during sex. And that translates into the pelvic pain. It could actually, no, I would say across board pain is probably it. Yeah. Whether it's like menstrual pain or pain during sex or just like muscular pain.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening there? So you do have doctors in your clinic. And so what are you finding is sort of a solution around that pain part?
Yeah. Pelvic floor physio, pelvic floor awareness, learning to engage and also relax your pelvic floor. A lot of those can eliminate many pelvic pain or issues.
Yeah.
That's a common solution.
Right.
Yeah, again, it could be like it's because it's so broad, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like if we're going to talk about the basic ones, that if someone is saying, hey, it hurts when I have sex, then that's typically we'd be looking at lubrication, which is across everybody would say that is like, are you using lube? And they're like, yes, I'm using lube, and it still hurts. So then we're looking at the muscular component to it, which Emsella can provide. Also pelvic floor physio.
Right. So what is that? So Amy, that's your sort of department, the pelvic floor physio piece. So tell us a little bit about that. What would somebody expect if they're going to come in for pelvic physio?
So my specialty is not pelvic floor physio, although I advocate for pelvic floor physio with every patient, every student in front of me. I have been for 10 years, just having the conversation around pelvic floor physio. They're able to do internal exams, really get the patient's able to get such a good snapshot of what their pelvic floors are doing, because we don't know what our pelvic floors are up to unless we've been assessed. And pelvic floor physio is an amazing place for education, for solutions, really. So we do have an amazing pelvic floor physiotherapist in the clinic. Patients come to see me specifically for Emsella. I do some educating around the relaxation, the strengthening, the maintenance part after Emsella. So but I'm always talking about pelvic floor physio because it's really one of those things where I see with my own patients and students, this is the word that's been spreading a lot more than 10 years ago when I started teaching. Pelvic floor physio was unheard of, or maybe not unheard of, but much less talked about. And now I still teach a lot of women. I do that also in my weeks, and I love hearing like, oh, I saw a pelvic floor physiotherapist. And so there's definitely just a lot more awareness around pelvic floor physio, and it's more accessible now as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, no, for sure. So what other things are out there? We on our pre-call, we talked about yoni steaming or something. Was it yoni steaming?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's great you mentioned something like that, because we do get messages in our Instagram and asking, "Hey, what do
Yeah.
your doctors think about this?" Or and there's some new gimmick or new thing or new
Mhm.
and I mean, we don't recommend anything that's not approved by Health Canada, and primarily because we are an evidence-based clinic, so everything we have there is research and research done by thousands of people that tell us, hey, okay, this is safe for you. So that's ultimately the difference, right? So yoni
Right.
steaming is not recommended,
Mm.
but that's a great example because so many people they're like,
So on
oh, I heard
TikTok,
about that.
I'm gonna go like TikTok is
Yeah,
like, this is where they're learning this stuff, and it's like, holy cow. So yeah.
it really is. And now our phones are going to have it yawny for the next few days,
Exactly.
right? Because it's all about what's new. And that's the thing, we share a lot of knowledge between each other. Like, as a community, it's just the right knowledge needs to be like, we've got to find a way that can filter what's safe and evidence
Hmm.
based. And I mean, I'm not saying yoni steaming is not safe, but I'm saying it's not evidence based. Like, we don't have enough evidence to to actually put it up and say these are the things that it would help you with. And that's
Hmm.
primarily what the issue is, right? It's like
Exactly.
Kegel balls, right?
Yeah.
That's still like it there's a lot of advantages to having a weight, but then we don't have enough ability to be like, hey, this is, you're going to buy this, you're going to use it for this, and give them the education that they need to do it properly so it's safe.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I mean, Kegel balls is another great one to say along with the yoni steaming. It's like there's just not enough education that we can help and
That's
put it on
right.
our shelves and say this is what you're going to do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it just everything you keep saying, it just keeps coming back to like spending the time as a woman, spend the time and the money on, your health. And vaginal health is like the number one. I think it plays such a mental game as well to you as well. Like it's just, yeah, it's wild when you think about all the different things that are happening there and how great you feel when you do come with some solutions that are more than just, well, there's nothing really you can do about it. You got to go buy yourself a set of pads at
Yeah.
the drugstore. I want to go back to Emcella a little bit more, just largely because I'm like
Mhm.
fascinated with that technology. So you said that men can also take advantage of Emcella. So Amy, tell me a little bit about how why would a man need that treatment? And then what are sort of some of the outcomes for him?
Yeah, sure. Men have pelvic floors too.
Yeah.
Really, they do. They have pelvic floor muscles that do the same thing, supporting their pelvic organs. They want strong pelvic floors as well. Similar to women, if there's weakness, if they're overly tense in the pelvic floor muscles, they will experience similar symptoms of incontinence, of dysfunction of those muscles, lower libido, less sensation, erectile dysfunction, trouble getting and maintaining an erection. All of those play a part in men's pelvic health too. So the Emcella technology also supports male pelvic health as well. Absolutely. In the same way, strengthening the muscles of the pelvic floor, providing blood flow, increasing that sensation, the pleasurable sensation, and really, yeah, helping their pelvic health as well.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Because when I was sitting there getting my treatment, and I think it was Maria that said, "Oh yeah, men come too," and I'm like,
Yeah, we
"Really?
do treat men. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
that's really
They're
very
always
that's
much more
awesome."
nervous, I find. They're a little,
Yeah.
they're maybe not quite as chill and relaxed as the women are, but yeah, absolutely, absolutely helpful. And yeah, definitely.
So essentially, this Ancella, really, you talked about it, having this magnetic um, system to make it work, but like to just unpack it and just like give it to the listeners from a
Yeah,
person that's taken it. I mean, really, you're sitting on this chair, this throne, really,
Kegel
and
throne. Yeah.
this Kegel throne, and I mean, I have my underwear on, but like no pants, and all of a sudden, this sort of vibrate. You turn this thing on, and it starts to vibrate, and you think to yourself, "Oh my God, what is happening?" And then you sit there for about what was it, 28
Yeah,
minutes?
28 minutes. That's right. Yeah.
28 minutes, where you're just sort of making sure that you're positioned correctly. And this magnetic field is really just sort of working your whole pelvic kind of area. And I'm going to let you kind of
Yeah,
explain that. I
sure.
actually meant to get you to bring that.
To bring the pelvis, I should have. Yeah.
Mhm.
Emsella uses something called high fem technology. So high intensity focused electromagnetic energy. So basically, as you sit on it, it's a cone of magnetic energy that we position the patient's pelvis. We do have a little pelvis model that we work with and talk about all the muscles inside the pelvis, what they do, how we can activate them, how we relax them. And then we talk about pelvis positioning as we seat them on the chair, get them nice and comfortable so that that electromagnetic energy is really focused on the pelvic floor. And they sit for 28 minutes. The technology goes through its cycles, and basically it's moving the pelvic floor muscles through their full range of motion. So contraction, relaxation, again, it's like waking those muscles up. These muscles can be deconditioned again through all those things that we talked about, hormone changes and childbirth, all of that. Even just sitting all day and not breathing into our pelvis and our torso every day, all those things contribute to that. So it's this awakening for these deconditioned muscles. And yeah, and it works. It
Right.
does.
Okay. And I do want to say that it does work. And
Yeah.
when we were on our pre-call, because I didn't get a chance, I mean, I had my treatments very close to each other, largely because I was running out of time.
Right.
But normally you would have 6 treatments over a course
Yes.
of, let's say, maybe 2 weeks, kind
Three
of
weeks.
3 weeks,
3 weeks. Yeah. Twice a week for 3 weeks. We put 2 to 3 days in between the treatments. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And so on our pre-call, I was telling you, so I had 4 sessions, and I was mentioning that I thought, I don't know, maybe this is subconscious, but I feel like it gets better
Mhm.
more, like the
Yeah.
more times that I'm,
Yes.
with my partner. Um, yeah, and it was really interesting when you guys said it was the biofeedback that was probably triggering. So I want you to tell a little bit about that. So it's doing this work for you, but there's this other piece of your body that starts talking, like you've got these receptors that start
Yeah.
to talk to each other.
That's
So
exactly how it explained it. Is it gets the brain talking to the pelvis again. It's those receptors, and it's sending those messages back and forth as you're sitting through treatment. And the brain is saying, "Oh, okay, hello, muscles." They're moving through that full range of motion. The brain, it's basically a brain nervous system pelvic floor connection that through the treatment we build those, we kind of reprogram the brain and the pelvis to work together again. And a lot of the feedback from patients is that new level of awareness, and they're really tuned in now to sensation and urge and how their pelvis functions, partly from the technology, partly from the education, the combination of everything. It's my favorite part of the job, honestly, is to see people reconnect back to their bodies. It's powerful. It's so
mhm.
powerful, just to see and observe that awareness and that they can tell when, when they want to activate the pelvic floor to support movements or lifting or those types of things. And all of a sudden they're feeling it in their own body. Their brain is understanding that again. And it's amazing. Yeah, it really is.
I know, because I really, like I mentioned, I honestly thought it was just psychological. Like, but then I was like, okay, this can't be. It's got to be a little bit kind of part of the whole process. So yeah, I never thought of those as being benefits until after I
Huge
started
benefits.
receiving them. So what happens after? Like, I want to hear about some of the women that have come to you that have had problems that they've never been able to get real correct solutions, but then they leave your clinic after doing whatever treatments. And I also want to talk a little bit too about how everything in your life really is about creating systems. So it's not just one thing that is your solve all, right? So your mental health, your physical health, there's different things that you need to do for your mental health, right? And there's different things that you need to do for your physical health. And so why would that be any different from sort of your vaginal health, right? Just making that part of your overall system of staying healthy and also advocating for yourself and you as a woman. And I love that. And so tell me about some of the stories about the women that have come and, said, wow, I just cannot believe it. I've been suffering with this for so long, and now I have this joy.
So you take that one, Maria?
Yeah, you've got great stories.
I will say that I heard something in the last week that was when women experience symptoms like incontinence, like pain in their pelvis, pain with intercourse, all these things related to vaginal health. On the average woman waits between 6 and 7 years before seeking support, which
Wow.
blew my mind. And I know that I believe that. I would never have thought it was that long. But I thought that was very interesting that we band-aid solution a lot of the, we wear the pads, the period underwear, the absorbent underwear, that sort of thing. So, what I've seen so far with patients coming in is, it's affecting their quality of life. They're not, walking their dogs as long as they want to. They're not participating in the activities that they want to. I've seen weightlifters, people with very active, active habits and sports, and they don't want to be leaking. They don't want to be, dealing with the urgency. And honestly, seeing results, seeing results in these patients, seeing patients returning back to the activities that mean a lot to them and is huge. So that's, I think, I'm sorry, Lynette, you might have to repeat the question again. I
No,
went off there a little bit. But...
As you spoke, Amy, I was actually thinking of one particular woman I spoke to, and this is it's not like, well, I'll just say it, just so you kind of see like the severity of it. Is right. She has prolapse, so she's had prolapse for quite some time. It wasn't really significant, but it was enough where she would sit on the toilet and some of it would come out. So she would.
So what is prolapse?
It's when yes, I should say that. Yeah. So when your pelvic floor is weaker, your organs are actually start protruding out.
Wow.
And so it'll sort of flip inside out and just kind of drop, right? It'll drop out of the vagina. So, so typically, with a severe weakened pelvic floor for multiple reasons, it would be weak. That's what is the potential, is that because it holds your internal organs in, right? So that kind of flips back out. It doesn't hurt or anything typically because it's just been going on for so long. Like you don't really notice anymore. Like you'll start leaking a bit, and then people that have prolapse, it's typically they look down and they see it. They see their organs, so they'll just sort of tuck it back in and continue with their day. And And so this one woman, she's had a bit of a minor prolapse, was what she told me, and she just lived with it, and she would have incontinence. She wore pads, and it wasn't until this one day she laid down to have sex with her husband, and he looked down and he like screamed, and she looked down and she saw that a lot of it had come out of her vagina, and she just looked down and was like, oh, just tuck it back in. And so she quickly just tucked it, and then that caused so many issues because he didn't want to have sex with her. He wasn't sure if it was safe, it was comfortable. And it was at that point that she was like, okay, I need to actually go and do something about this. So that's a very good lead to Amy's story about the 7 years, right?
Yeah.
It's like she didn't deal with it until somebody found out, and then now the shame is opened, and then she's got her relationship is tarnished somewhat, right? And she's just one person. Like this is happening all the time. So I mean, Emsella is not going to solve a prolapse like that. Emsella should be used as a preventative, but it can also definitely be used when you start seeing symptoms of prolapse, which would be incontinence for sure. Yeah.
Primarily, yeah.
You know, it's just, I still can't get over it. Like, I know you're absolutely right. It goes back to our earlier part of this conversation, why we do not, as women, why are we not talking about this? I remember when I turned 50 and all of a sudden I felt like I had every menopausal symptom there possibly could be. And I was so shocked because I mean, I had a severe case of vertigo, the hot flashes, my eyesight, like all this, like everything was just going. And I jokingly said to a few of my friends, like, holy shit, like I need a book that's called The Shit I Wish I Would Have Known About Turning 50. And then I had this aha, and I'm like, why didn't I know about this stuff beforehand? And I think it's really truly our history of our education, you know, the word vagina. Oh my God, don't say the word vagina. Don't say the word penis. Like, it's just like, it's so crazy that, and like even sex education in school was kind of not really that like expansive, you know, it was just more reproductive than it was about anything. And I guess it sort of assumed that everybody was going to be perfectly healthy. But I mean, how many times have you ever met a woman or even a man that they are completely healthy down there 100% of the time? I mean, I would be shocked if there was somebody that said, yeah, no problems here whatsoever, you know? So, so when you think about your value proposition of the clinic and how you're getting the word out, what do you want to say to a woman that's probably listening to this podcast going, okay, I'm done waiting 6 or 7 years. I'm going to actually go and do something about this. What would you say to that person? Or you met that person at the dinner party, but like me, Maria, where you and I met, but I had already kind of done some research, or, you know, what would you say to somebody like me that would be completely naive to it all?
I would, my message really is own your body and love your body. And it's yours, and you need to take care of it as well as you take care of everyone around you. And that's ultimately the whole, like, why Mod is open and why we're open arms, like, come learn, because we're all going through this together, and nothing one person says is really ever going to shock us, right? Because we're all going through the same things. So you're not alone. Our bodies are all made just like this. So the chance of the symptoms being very similar is going to be very high. but yeah, like it's love yourself enough to advocate for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Amy, what would you say?
I would say come in and learn, and, don't be shy about booking in, even if you just have questions, whether it's a physician or a pelvic floor physio or myself, take that step, come in, see the products. There's support available, like there really is. And share that, share that with the people that you love and the people in your life, because that's how women's health changes, is by talking about it. And just becoming aware of your body is really, I think, one of the first steps to take is awareness and education around what our body does, how it functions. When we understand that, we want to take care of ourselves. And come into the clinic. There's we're so happy to, everybody in the clinic is doing what they love. They're sharing, they're educating, they're talking. We love to see patients. We love to talk and educate and support. And take that step. Don't be shy. That's really what I would say. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I just want to thank both of you for spending this time with me today. I think that you are doing very amazing things in this world, and I just want to thank you for it, because I just really I wish my mom would have had these types of options, because I saw her go through some pretty traumatic things as well. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Lynette. Thank you
I'm
so
going to
much.
have you back soon. Okay, take care.
Thank you for all of this.
Yes, thanks, Lynette.
Using your platform. That's really what it is. Like
exactly. All right, ladies.